Hey guys, this is Tyler John Santos. We're here for my presentation on transcendentalism. All right, let's begin. The origin of transcendentalism begins in 1836 and it goes through 1860. Many of the big key contributors to this movement were Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and Margaret Fuller. Quick definition of transcendentalism is its big focus is on we're on divinity of nature. It was influenced by Romanticism, and they were very progressive on their views towards feminism and communal living. They were also big on individualism and idealism. Transcendentalism began in 1836 in New England, and Ralph Waldo Emerson uh, began this movement. It was started near Concord, Massachusetts. It was the product of a battle between the beliefs of the newer and older generations. Individualism was a very big movement and belief for transcendentalists, and it is a social theory favoring freedom of action for individuals over collective or state control. And it was a big way to reunite with God. And a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson that I really like is, "Nothing can bring you peace but yourself." And my visual right here shows um, a bunch of people walking down the stairs that all look alike, and then one person that looks different than everyone else that is doing his own thing, and that shows that you're you're being courageous and brave enough to do what you think is right, not following the flow with other people. Idealism is the second uh, big belief for transcendentalists. The definition of that is any various systems of thought in which the objects of knowledge are held to be in some way dependent on the activity of mind. And the leader of idealism was Immanuel Kant, and he believed that all objects are outer and not in control. You are not in control of them. Possibly the most important, actually the most important person of transcendentalism is Ralph Waldo Emerson. He was born May 25th, 1803 in Boston, Massachusetts, and he died on April 27th, 1882 in Concord, Massachusetts, which was actually where transcendentalism first started. And he is the oldest out of the three uh, contributors of transcendentalism that I'm mentioning. His best work is Self-Reliance, and it really harped on it is better to trust yourself over anything else. And right here, this visual actually has a good quote that I like. Only person you are destined to become is the person you decide to be. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said that, and I believe he is trying to tell people that you just need to be yourself, and what you want to be is what you're going to be. Second most important person of transcendentalism is Henry David Thoreau. He was born July 12th, 1817 in Concord, Massachusetts, and he died May 6th in Concord, Massachusetts as well. His most famous works are Walden and Civil Disobedience. Let's start out with Walden. This was his account of living away from civilization for 2 years on Walden Pond, which was actually owned by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he did this to become closer to his roots of transcendentalism, which was getting back to the basics of life and not having material things. He actually lived in a cabin that he built, and he had very little contact with the outside world for the 2 years of his hiatus away from civilization, even though he was actually only a couple miles away from people, and which is actually pretty impressive to keep going with your isolation, even though civilization is so close to you. The second biggest work or best work is civil disobedience. Thoreau believed that people had the right to civilly and peacefully disagree with what the government said, and he stuck to that pretty well. Last and um, of the most important transcendentalists is Margaret Fuller. She was born May 23rd, 1810, in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Died July 19th, 1850, in Fire Island, New York. She was a major leader of transcendentalism, and her best work was Women in the 19th Century. And that work spoke about the place of women in her time period and what she thought they should be doing or what she thought was wrong. All right, to wrap it up, Transcendentalism began in 1836 and ended in 1860, and it took place in Concord, Massachusetts. Major contributors of this movement, this philosophical and literature movement, was Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, and their big beliefs were divinity of nature, which meant that you were the closest you could be to God whenever you were in nature. And the other two are individualism and idealism. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I look forward to listening to yours as well.